El Clamico and El Trafico both end in draws. Greg Lalas joins the show. And what's the deal with these new soccer stadiums? That and more here on Monday's Morning Kickaround. Hello and welcome to the show. The sound of Franz Packermauer means just one thing. You found your way to Morning Kickaround, where we cover the world's favorite game from the world's most favoritist country, coming to you live each Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I'm Robert Kerr. He's Jason Davis. We've both got kits on. How you feeling?
Good to be back. A shout out to Mitch for sitting in last week with you while I was otherwise indisposed, doing other things, doing radio. Actually, is what I was. I wasn't off doing no soccer things.
Radio.
I was doing radio. I was doing some SiriusXM FC work, which meant I couldn't be here. We have a weird schedule this summer, so glad that Mitch was able to sit in. I saw you guys covered a bunch of interesting stories. I know we've got a lot of good stuff today.
Yeah,
and you mentioned Greg Lalas. This one is going to be a one for the old heads a little bit, and maybe if you weren't around in '94. Or you somehow missed not. Maybe you were living as a hermit on top of a mountain in 1994. You might not understand how big that was. Maybe you don't get, or maybe you just want to, you do understand that it was big, but you want to actually hear from people who were involved or were around or were able to kind of get their first big taste of soccer in America. Greg Lalas has got a very cool thing that he's doing with his agency, his short corner media company that I'm very excited to talk about.
Yeah, big show ahead. We are almost at 3,000 subscribers. You see that, Jason? Just a few away. Could even hit it during the show today.
Could we?
If you're watching now, if you haven't hit subscribe yet, do so now and help us hit those numbers. Take it up a notch with your support. $3.99 a month. Become an MK Ultra. It is you get membership to the channel. You get priority commenting on these videos, access to the morning Discord server. And bonus content. If you want to help us out with some specific fundraising goals, ko-fi.com/morningkickaround. We got some targets to hit there. You can also follow along on social media at mkickaround, X, Instagram, Blue Sky. Getting some numbers there too. So thank you for joining along there. And then you can also hit us up, email morningkickaround@gmail.com. We got some nice notes to return to you guys. And then we're also a podcast, Morning Kickaround, on your favorite audio platform. We've got a lot to get to, so let's kick some long balls here on Monday's Morning Kickaround.
Oh, it didn't work. What happened?
We double-clicked the button. All right, long balls here on Monday, July 21st. Long ball number one.
One second. Right, you're steamrolling me. I'm trying to jump in here. I want to shout out our member MK Ultra Chris, who said hell of a weekend in D4 leagues. Down there in USL League 2, they had some playoffs. They have some playoffs happening. I know that's captured a lot of attention. I just want to acknowledge this, and I want to acknowledge Chris because he sends us a bit of money every month to be an MK Ultra. So my apologies for stopping you in your tracks, Robert. You were full steam ahead. You were like that train that you have to jump on top of to stop. It's not a Denzel Washington movie where he's got to stop the train because it's out of control.
There's a Danger Train video, and I actually just watched one of the old Tobey Maguire Spider-Mans where he stops an L train with his feet and various webbing.
That's part of the Incredibles too. There's a out of control train in that one. It's like Speed, but with a train is what I'm thinking of. And anyway, you're a train, so continue.
I should stop being so cliche and training along. But yeah, shout out. We're talking about kits. I was on Midwest Premier League commentary duty. Get picked up by Troy United yesterday. That was a good one. But yeah, I don't know if you followed along, but the USL 2 playoffs, there was all sorts of crazy stuff up in Flint. Extra time, Flint Bucks taking out Fort Wayne. Sorry to the MK Ultras riding along with Fort Wayne, but they fell in extra time last night in Flint.
Shout out to Vermont Green, who advanced as well. I know that's lots of very excited people up there in I believe Bernie Sanders on hand.
You're kidding me.
He's been to a number of Vermont Green games, I believe, and I believe he was there again this weekend for Vermont Green. So that's that's always interesting when local dignitaries get involved in lower league soccer. We like that.
Oh yeah, he's where the people are. Oh, bless him. But we're talking some of the best rivalry names in American sports were played out this weekend. Famously, El Tráfico, an exciting 3-3, but El Clamico in the East, the lesser known, the newer of the two golden named rivalry matches, El Clamico, Rhode Island versus Hartford, a 0-0. So we'll put the spotlight at first to that 3-3. Lots of action here, and as always, or seemingly always, this match never short of drama and late game heroics. It was a Galaxy equalizer there at the death.
It was, and I believe I'm sure LAFC is extremely annoyed at the fact that they conceded that goal. There was a red card just before that, as there were some shenanigans, some roustabouting. What's another good a kerfuffle? There was a kerfuffle.
I'm definitely not beating roustabouting.
I don't think that's. I don't know that you. I think you can have a roustabout. I don't know if you can actually roustabout as a verb.
Do you roustabout when you're getting at the tomfoolery?
If you're in roustabouting is usually a little bit more violent than tomfoolery. And in this case, it was a little bit more of it wasn't violent. I mean, there weren't punches thrown, but there was a coming together, handbags, as some people used to call them, a fracas. I guess you say fracas or you say fracas?
I said fracas.
You say is that a Midwestern thing? Is that I'm just curious. I mean, this is like, the regional dialect question.
I've never heard an alternate pronunciation of it. That's the only thing I know about it. And with all this pronunciation talk, we're going to be at loggerheads here in a minute.
We are going to be at loggerheads, but you're saying it's a fracas, and I'm saying maybe it's a fracas. You never heard fracas? Never?
I haven't. Okay. Sir, I have not.
All right. Well, this is a mystery now we have to get to the bottom of, and maybe Jenny will give us her thoughts as to whether it's fracas or fracas, and we'll pass that along. All right.
There's no Y in fracas.
There's no Y in fracas. Why would it be a long A? I cannot tell you, Rob. It might be. It might be. All right. Look, El Tráfico. Right. It was Jenny's on your side. That stinks for me. El Tráfico 3-3 with a fracas. I'm sorry, a fracas with a late header with Denis Bouanga just doing Denis Bouanga things like that. At some points you're like, oh, they kind of know what he's going to do. Maybe there are ways to stop him. No, I'm sorry. You're not going to beat Denis Bouanga in a foot race over even 60 yards with the ball at his feet. Maybe you should be careful in possession and not give up those opportunities so that he can charge down on your keeper, Rob. But that was a very entertaining game. 3 goals each, 6 goals all total. Love that in a rivalry. Not so sure I love a goalless draw in El Clamico, which I'm also not sold on the name either, Rob.
It's funny when I was joking about it with my spouse over the weekend. She at first thought kind of withdrew. She thought it was going to be some sort of like very gross related name.
Wait a second. That's how far Slam has now gone that we're not even allowed to reference it without it invoking bad images of like.
Once I get provided better context with like, hey, there's this game called El Clasico which spawned El Tráfico, and now there's El Clamico. It made sense and was less gross, but on the front, on the first introduction of the topic, she was not enthused by that. But yeah, 0-0, and both of these teams not doing so well respectively, pretty low down in the Eastern Conference in USL Championship. So I guess not a huge surprise that they were scoreless, I suppose.
Yeah, I spaced on this a little bit. I took my kid to his little gym class yesterday. He has a gym class on Sunday mornings, and I'm standing there next to one of the dads, and he's wearing a Portugal national team shirt. And I had previously seen him in a Pumas jersey, so I know he's a soccer guy. So now I got this, I don't often wear jerseys. Sometimes I do. We haven't had one of those situations where we're both wearing jerseys and we can do like we're soccer guys. But I ended up talking to him anyway about some other things, and we got to soccer a little bit. And he said he was from Rhode Island, and I forgot to mention El Clamico. I wonder how he would have responded. Because I get the sense he probably didn't know it was happening. Because despite the fact he's from Rhode Island, and my guess is, having moved to the Washington, D.C. area, he doesn't He didn't mention it. He wasn't like, yeah, my local team is Rhode Island FC. He was just kind of saying, oh yeah, I'm a soccer fan, but I moved here from Rhode Island. So maybe I should have brought up El Clamico. That would have been a nice icebreaker to say, hey, have you heard about this rivalry between Rhode Island and Hartford? It's called El Clamico, and see how a Rhode Islander responded to that in the wild. It would have been interesting.
Yeah, would that have been right in the pocket? Like, oh yeah, like totally anything around here would totally just be called Clamico. Only 75 miles apart between. So I think from the pictures, it looked like there was a really nice atmosphere there. Maybe no goals, but a nice scene.
Well, yeah, and look, this is what we want, right? We want whatever the result of the game and have whatever how many goals are scored. What we want are local rivalries, intense matches, passion from fans who are there to support their local team, right? And I don't care if it's MLS or USL Championship, USL League 1, USL League 2. We're going to talk about one of those USL League 2 teams, I think, a little bit later. I don't care. I just want people to connect to their teams. And I got into a little bit of a thing with somebody in the comments on one of our videos, right? This idea that everything is kind of created here. And what we really need are factory teams or a bunch of lads getting together and starting a club. And that it needs to be organic, just like it was in England or in Italy or in France or whatever. And I'm like, dude, that ship sailed a long time ago. In fact, we moved on from ships. Now we got airplanes. Like we don't need, that's not a thing that can happen. I mean, it can, I suppose a bunch of guys get together and start a club, Rob, and it happened in Detroit. But my point is, like, money has to enter the picture at some point. Unless you want to sort of blow up the whole system, shut down all the pro teams, and then have a bunch of these actual clubs form, and then we wait for a century for it to become like a thing. Like, I don't know what that is. Like, I understand the romantic notion of it, and I understand like the desire to have clubs that sort of organically represent their communities rather than it being forced upon them, particularly when people who maybe are from out of town come in and go, yeah, we're going to start a club and we're going to do a mixed use development so I can get my hands on some real estate. No, if that soccer team does well, okay, great. Like, I would prefer that it not be like that. But I would also prefer clubs exist than not. And I know that's very reductive, but if we're going to have any hope that our map is completely dotted with soccer teams and successful ones that aren't going to collapse in 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 years, then we just got to start having people being willing to put the money down.
I think it was in the commentary on our NISA video, but in amongst the communications connected to a morning Kickaround, someone was saying that maybe the shift at the grassroots level should be more a steel industry than tech startup. That maybe you just front end load tons of infrastructure and investment, and then long play it rather than narrow moving bit by bit sort of thing.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, that is an interesting question. Obviously, the way that investment works in a modern world, and it's all colored by tech startups and those kind of things. And obviously you can have startups in other industries, but I do think that this sense of like, how do you launch a company is, well, we start with an idea and then we just ask a bunch of people to give us money so they can have a share of the company. And then we, try to build that out. And obviously with soccer, it's very difficult to get, to sort of get momentum ahead of you, going forward so that you can start bringing in money so that you can become self-sustaining. I don't know, let's hope that all happens in various places, that these clubs that are starting are not sort of running out of money in 2 or 3 years, because it's difficult. If you want to front load it, I do believe that Eric Stover mentioned something like that for his team in Jersey, right? They want to bring in a bunch of investment so they can say, here's our longer play. Here's our decade worth of investment. And obviously if they start getting momentum and they start bringing in money, well, then, get self-sustaining as soon as possible. But you do kind of need that runway you're talking about. That is interesting.
Moving on to long ball number 2, a lot of folks in the chat wanting to chime in about USL 2 and some of the elite amateur playoffs going on. We'll get into that in long ball 3, but long ball 2 here, notable as far as the landscape and the calendar, the owner of the Philadelphia Union kind of tipping his hand to Jonathan Tannenwald about a calendar change and kind of some big changes that seemingly are coming to Philadelphia, but the calendar change item comes to the fore once again.
Yeah, so Jonathan, I want to be clear here. Jonathan Tannenwald, friend of mine, writes for the Philadelphia Inquirer. A lot of you will know him. He posted a story he wrote for the Inquirer that says the Union are not actually saying how they would vote on an MLS calendar change, but they're hinting that they're for it. So this, and there's a paywall involved. Please go support Jonathan Tannenwald and his work at the Philadelphia Inquirer, but there's a paywall involved. But it says that team president Tim McDermott and principal owner Jay Sugarman spoke on the record about that subject ahead of a board of governors meeting that's happening for Major League Soccer around the MLS All-Star game, which is Wednesday. So everybody will be out in Austin. They're going to have a board of governors meeting. It's one of the reasons the All-Star game still exists, to be honest with you. It's just an excuse to get everybody together. And so this may come up. I believe our friend Simon Evans also is reporting on this consistently with soccer, the business of soccer. Is that what it is? The business of soccer? Yeah, I want to get that right. This is a major, like, this is maybe the next domino, the next major thing for American soccer. And while it would only be MLS that makes this choice, I do wonder what the knock-on effect would be for what we're talking about with the USL Championship and USL League One and the expansion and stadium building, how that changes the scenario, if at all. Like, does the USL follow suit? They have their women's league playing on this calendar that MLS is considering, right? Which is the fall to spring calendar that most of Europe follows. I think for the Union, what is interesting about this is you're like, why would the Union be in favor of this? I mean, Philadelphia's in a place where winter weather conceivably could be a problem. Now, I do think a lot of people would say better to be playing in cold or better to be having games moved around because of cold than to be playing through 100 degrees with 78% humidity, which, trust me, I'm in the Atlantic, mid-Atlantic. It is hell right now. It is disastrous to be outside. I think
an upper Midwest saying is you can put on more coats in the winter but you can't strip down more in the summer.
No, that's not. Yeah. And I wouldn't advise walking around as stripped down as you can. I think for the Union, though, part of this is the business of developing players. That the Union are a selling club. We know that. They're also a very successful team in Major League Soccer. And they've done that magic trick of being competitive while also being a developing club. But the idea of selling players gets a lot easier when your windows line up. You're not having to sell a player in the middle of your season for them to go off to Europe. Now you're selling them in the same end of season, preseason window that everybody else has. Right? I think that could be. I think that Jay Sugarman and the people involved with the Union, and obviously they made a choice at head coach because Ernst Tanner wanted more kids to play, and they're proving that that's working under Bradley Carnell. I think they see this as we can do a lot better selling players, and we have a proven track record of developing players if our calendar's lined up. So it's not so much the business of selling tickets that they're concerned with. It's the business of developing and selling players.
There was some additional interesting notes from Sugarman. Who's not shy away from a good quote. But what do you think of him saying the first 16 years of the Union being just the warm up? Is that just like spin zone, or is there really going to be a big change?
I think that's typical bluster. I mean, the thing about Sugarman is that for a long time, Union fans hated him. Union fans were extreme. Obviously, they were bad. I mean, they were consistently bad. And if you're looking for a reason that any professional sports outfit is bad, you can go to the people who make the personnel decisions, right? You could talk about the general manager. You could obviously talk about the on-field manager as well. Like that's always, we're bad. Well, it's because we have bad coaches. Okay. But I think Union fans always saw Sugarman as holding the club back because he wasn't willing to spend. And it's important to remember that Philadelphia, I believe, is the 5th biggest market in the country.
Yeah.
Now, maybe your revenue is less connected to your market size in soccer than it is anywhere else in any other major sport, right? Like the Yankees have an advantage because they're in New York and they bring in so much money from being in New York, and that's a major issue. And obviously the Dodgers the same way. They have all this money partly because they're in LA than in this massive market. It may not be as much of a factor in Major League Soccer, but it feels as though you are not meeting your potential when you're in the 5th biggest market in the country and you play like a small market team, which the Union did for years and years and years. And a lot of people would point to Sugarman as the problem. So now because people like Richie Graham and obviously Ernst Tanner, but before that, Ernie Stewart, helped lay the groundwork for a developmental system that is paying dividends. And I don't think money-wise was a huge investment. Certainly not the same as like spending $50 million on players. They have seen the light on this. It's come back around the other way. And Sugarman's probably right. Like we have enough data here to know, Rob, that if any team in Major League Soccer can consistently turn out one or two good pros a year, it's the Union. They're the ones. And if he's saying that this has been a warm-up the last 16 years, it's because of that. It's because they look at this and they go, Kevin Sullivan, Quinn Sullivan, Brendan Aronson, go down, Mark McKenzie, go down the list of Union products that have gone on to bigger and better things. I think they see that this is the step before that when they get to a place of being maybe one of the preeminent talent developers, certainly in the Western Hemisphere.
Yeah, and when you were gone last week, I brought up the topic of are we, in the midst of transitioning to MLS 4.0 and Major League Soccer being a part of the world development, conveyor belt, part of that new era. Fact check from earlier, friend of the program, Simon Evans's project is The Soccer Business. So check him out.
The Soccer Business. Yeah, TSB. That's what that is. Go get it.
Long ball number 3. It is the postseason for the Elite Amateur leagues, USL 2, NPSL, and otherwise. One of the teams in USL 2 making huge waves this year with their attendance and action on the field, Annapolis Blues, facing lots of questions about going pro after getting 5-digit attendances regularly. And there's an article that came out in the last few days. USL League 2 club Annapolis Blues have their sights set on going pro after breaking attendance records in 2 different soccer leads. So amazing stuff there.
This is over at the Baltimore Business Journal. If you're wondering where this is, Garrett Dvorkin writing about a week ago. And this escaped our attention. And this is obviously pertinent to our interest because we talked about Annapolis Blues and their record-setting attendance. We talked about the idea of them going pro. We pondered that idea. Then we talked to Michael Hitchcock, who's one of the people behind the Annapolis Blues. Now, he's got a group that is invested in a number of these clubs, and we talked about a lot of them with Hitch. And we talked about Lubbock, and we talked about there's a new team in Virginia it's escaping me what town that's in. No, not the Dream. Down in the corner of Virginia. I can't remember the name of the city right now, but it'll come to me. And look, again, Hitch isn't the on the ground guy in Annapolis, right? He's the bigger picture guy. So when we talked to him about going pro, there wasn't I don't remember him saying, yeah, we want to take this team pro. I think the idea was
shot us down when we
I think he kind of did. So this is why this is interesting to me. And I'm not saying that he was lying. I'm saying that things change. And obviously there are different people involved in doing something like running the Annapolis Blues. So this is Fred Mathis, the Blues general manager, who is quoted in this story. Initially, we wanted to create a local amateur team and would have been happy to draw a crowd of 3,000 to 4,000 people. But we blew that out of the water. And every time we draw more than 10,000 fans, the question is about going pro and charting a path for us to do that. Now, to be fair to Mathis, it's not like he's saying we drew 10,000, we drew 12,000, we're going pro. He's saying we have to consider, like, how could you not consider the possibility with those numbers, Rob? Like it'd be ridiculous to go look at all this excitement for soccer in Annapolis. You know what we're going to do? We're just going to stay where we're at. I mean, just which again, maybe there is a need for a little bit of that in American soccer. Like maybe
just pumping the brakes and sometimes.
Yeah, just being thoughtful about these processes and not necessarily diving headfirst in because you saw a little burst of excitement, right? Like you need to do analysis. You need to make sure that this is sustainable. You got to know, hey, if we go pro, and this is what we said with Hitch, right? And this is what we talked about on our first video about whether Annapolis should go pro. The different costs that come with being a professional soccer team as opposed to a short season, high amateur team, right? What are their expenses outside of renting their stadium? Almost nothing.
Taking care of their team, whatever operational costs, league fees, but I mean, it's certainly not full-time staff, full-time playing staff, full-time training staff,
right?
Facilities year-round, practice facilities. There's
all that stuff.
Huge
travel. travel across the country rather than, or travel, 2 time zones away rather than right in your backyard, or a regional approach that USL2 has, right? These things. And so again, it's not like Fred Mathis is saying it's happening tomorrow. In fact, he says this isn't going to happen tomorrow, but down the road, if the opportunities present themselves and we have the right finances in place, absolutely, it would be a step we would take. This story says they had $1 million in revenue this season, which for a USL League 2 team, pretty incredible.
I think the usual budget is like 8 to 15,000.
Well, okay, this is revenue. I don't know what their spend was, right? So I don't know what, like, if there's a profit here, what is that doing? Where are they putting it? Those kind of things. I mean, those are interesting questions. The biggest issue facing a team like Annapolis, and it will be a topic of discussion on this show later on, I think, is stadium. Right? Right now they play in Navy's Memorial Stadium. That is a big college football venue, right? That is not a permanent home. They would need training facilities. They don't have training facilities. They have a bunch of college kids come in, right? They're probably training on auxiliary fields that Navy allows them to use or that they rent from Navy. They don't have their own training facility. They would probably have to approach that, right? They'd have to deal with that. Again, Mathis mentions that as part of the season, part of the story. So
yeah, it's not a part of their original plan. We would probably need a new stadium, new year-round training facility, need access to more players and a higher level of talent, and require way more investing in recruiting. So I mean, you're scratching the surface. They know that there's a market there, but they have to basically build everything to get there.
My guess here is that the reporter reached out to the club, got Fred Mathis, said, "Hey, are you going pro, or are you thinking about going pro?" And Fred Mathis said, "Well, it would be insane not to at least consider the possibility. And there's a path there. Obviously, if there's this much excitement in Annapolis for our team, there's a path there to go pro. But yeah, we've got to do this and we've got to do that." And again, this comes back to something that we talked about with Detroit City FC, Rob, the idea of going from NPSL to pro, from NISA to USL Championship, meant bringing in people who are not part of the original crew, whose motivations may be different than yours. Mm-hmm. Now, as far as we know at the moment, with Detroit City getting ready to build their own stadium, everything has gone well for them. They found somebody who's willing to invest but not get involved. In terms of
which is a unicorn, really. I mean,
unicorn. That's the dream. That just doesn't really happen. So if Annapolis is like, well, in order to become a pro team, we've got to find a place to build a stadium, which means dealing with localities and tax laws and infrastructure and everything else. We got to finance that. We got to have a facility to train in. We got to finance that. We all these things. Now we got to go find money. And what do people who put money into things usually want, Rob? They want to say.
They want power, control.
Yeah. That is the interesting thing here. And I'm not going to tell Fred Mathis or anybody involved with Annapolis, don't go pro. Don't do it. You'll ruin a good thing. I don't want to say that. But I think if you've been around American soccer long enough, it's pretty easy to be worried about stuff like that. But I guess the point is, if we want to dot the map with clubs that can really contribute to American soccer's grand future, then probably a place that can draw 12,000 in the summer needs to be the home of some sort of professional enterprise, right?
Something that lasts longer than 3 months.
Something that goes longer than 3 months, something that encourages more people to play and be involved, something that gives kids who live near Annapolis, and Annapolis is relatively close to DC, it's relatively close to Baltimore, and yet you would still rather a kid who grows up in Annapolis or right around there or the Eastern Shore or whatever have a chance to go play in an academy for Annapolis than have to drive an hour or two or whatever to go play somewhere else in an academy that's connected to a professional team.
Yeah, I wonder how much off-season connection to the community Annapolis does. Like, does the Annapolis Blues brand live year-round? Are they constantly have programs and meetups and sort of community interactions to keep that going? Because I know with my experience with Oakland County FC, we've had some great years of attendance, but a lot of the time, by the time 9 months of a couple activities here and there, by the time the season comes around again, you have to remind everyone to come back on out again. And I know a lot of teams suffer with that, with it being the amateur nature when the club's not in session. If it's not a club that's already connected to something larger than just the first team, You struggle to prioritize it as the very first thing in someone's world. So if the people that are running it aren't able to put their primary energy, resources, and time into that, then I mean that makes it very difficult for that to live and then keep that energy and excitement and those 12,000 people that were at that game engaged until next year.
Right. Yeah. That again, it's sort of easy to fill the gap between what they are now and being a professional team with an imaginary things that aren't there yet, that you have to. And again, sometimes you'll miss that stuff. And this is why smart people who know how to build soccer teams are incredibly important in this country, and figuring out who those people are is sometimes difficult, right? The idea that, that guy knows how to build a soccer team because he had one success or two successes. And what is it that he did or she did that is different than what somebody else did somewhere where it didn't work? And again, when you look at the markets where it didn't work, you go, well, is it on the people who built the team or is it on some other factor that came into play that we didn't expect to be an issue for them? Whether it's a stadium lease that runs out. And again, I don't want to be a scold and say, don't start a soccer team because you don't know if it's going to last. I don't like dead soccer teams, though. I don't like soccer teams dying. I don't want that to continue to be the story of American soccer. So where is the line between taking the risk because it's worth taking the risk and, being assured on some level that you're not going to fold in 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, we're not ruining a good thing just for the sake of advancement, just because there was outside pressures.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's
because Flint is facing that same thing from Annapolis here soon. They don't get 12,000, but they get 5,000, and they have continued success on the field. But what's the motivations for them? They are a big fish in a small pond. They have people working year round. They're one of those half dozen to a dozen clubs at that USL 2 level that are always at the very least reaching the national semifinal level. There always a threat to make a deep run, and they get thousands of people there, and they're like, well, when are you going pro? But what does that mean if they have to pay their players and they're going to get enough people in Flint, Michigan to pay a whole salary for the
question is club? Why are you going pro? I mean, I think that's at the heart of this. Like, when you think about it, why are you going pro because people expect you to, because you got 12,000 out and now you feel like you have to meet that expectation?
Getting 12,000 people for 9 months is a lot harder than 3 months too.
Exactly. So I don't think that alone can be the reason to go pro. Like we had a bunch of people show up for a couple of games. That's not a reason to go pro. The reason to go pro is because you think that's going to improve the soccer situation in your given market. Now, obviously, like, again, some of this is business motivations. If we're a USL 2 team, do we make less money than if we're a pro team? So let's go pro to make more money. Right. But again, because of the nature of professional soccer in America and how fraught it is, particularly at the lower levels, that's probably not always true. So then who needs to be the person or what kind of sense do you need to get from your community to decide you're better serving them by going pro rather than stay where you are? And John Hunt is saying it. Not every USL 2 team needs to go pro. And when we did our USL League 1 expansion update last week, there might be 7 new teams in USL League 1. How many of those are coming up from USL League 2, Rob? How many are making that lump? 5 of them? Something like that?
Yeah, it wasn't just a poof out of nowhere, here's a pro team, but yeah, people making that transition. And I can't wait till we have our Fort Wayne guest come on, because seeing that transition, I mean, I was on hand for their first ever game in 2021, and that was always kind of the story that was told, that, we have eyes for pro, and, they definitely haven't rushed into it. And seemingly with a stadium coming along, making the jump to pro, that slow, methodical way is a good way to go, it would seem at this point. But very exciting times there for that team.
Yeah, I mean, I guess again, I'm not going to hate on somebody's ambition if they have it and if they have a plan. And I don't know, it feels defeatist on some level to say, well, we can't let all these teams go pro because some of them are going to die, and that would be bad. And like, just think about that negative as the reason not to do something and let it scare you, Rob. Right?
Yeah, again, it's like, well, if nobody took a risk, most of the coolest things in the world wouldn't exist, right?
I mean, that's true. That's true, right? You don't know unless you try. But if we have a country where people have tried hundreds of times only to fail, and then we think of that collective psychic damage done by club after club after club after club folding. And it's psychic damage. I don't even know if it's fundamentally bad for a soccer market. I used to talk about Austin a lot before Austin FC arrived, before Anthony Precourt executed his grand scam on MLS and got his team in Austin. They had multiple teams leave, collapse, right? The Austin Aztecs, you know that Orlando City started in Austin, right? Phil Rollins launched a team in Austin. Now, his play was always to go pro. His play was always to find a way to MLS. But he found out that Austin wasn't the right place for it at the time, and he picked up and he left and he went to Orlando and he pulled it off in Orlando. Got that team in a Major League Soccer after they were in the USL for a couple of seasons and won some trophies.
Yeah. So what are the current MLS teams that did that USL to MLS changeover? It was Minnesota, Orlando, and who else did that transition?
Well, man, Minnesota's history is a whole other thing too, right? I was writing about the MLS archive, the kits that just dropped last week. I was writing about that on my newsletter and sort of recognized they went with like this Minnesota Kicks font on their front when it says Loons, right? That was their throwback to an NASL version of soccer in Minnesota. But, there were multiple teams that played in Blaine that predate Minnesota United in Major League Soccer. Anyway, just a whole mess of things. We'll see what happens with Annapolis. It's a fascinating story.
Thanks, everyone, for tuning into the program. We got a great guest coming up next. If you're watching this now and that subscribe button isn't filled in, click that button now. And if you already done so and you want to take your support of the program up a notch, $3.99 a month is all it costs to become an MK Ultra. With the membership to the channel, you get priority commenting, access to bonus content, and access to the Morning Kickaround Discord server. We got some great threads, some conversations talking national team, USL Championship, and the local soccer thread, one of my favorites there. So support the show in any which way you can, but we won't make them wait anymore. Let's bring up our guest, Greg Lalas, on today's Hot Topic here on Morning Kickaround. Welcome in. This is Hot Topic here on Morning Kickaround. We are in an exciting time in American soccer. Pro Rail's on the horizon, expansion in markets left, right, and center. But we are less than 1 year away from the World Cup, which makes some of us think back on the first time the Men's World Cup was on our shores, World Cup 1994. For those of you a little young to remember all that, and to talk about his project, going in deep on the memories and what takeaways there were from the World Cup 1994. We've got co-founder Short Corner Media, Greg Lalas, joins the program. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Doing well, Greg. Appreciate you making some time for us. I am thrilled to talk about this. When I was on LinkedIn, which is not a place people really should spend a lot of time, but when I was on LinkedIn, I saw that you had posted this program, this, I don't know, project, I guess you would call it, with Club 11, where you're collecting memories of 1994, media in particular, like visual stuff. That's incredible. It's a great idea. Tell me where this comes from and what you guys want to achieve.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, thanks for having me on. And also, Jason, I want to give you a shout out for your respect of the history of the Minnesota team, right? And how that goes way back to the Thunder. You may remember the Thunder.
Yes.
There was even, I think, a team called the Blackhawks way back when. So they've been around doing lots of things, some great players out of there too. So we're in a historical mindset as we go. So look, 1994 obviously was, as we like to say, quote unquote, the year that changed American soccer forever. And I think a lot of people would say that's true. There were lots of other evolutions through the years, but certainly that was one of the big kickstarts to the modern era of soccer in America. And, of a certain generation, I won't tell you my age, but those of us of a certain generation certainly have very vivid memories of that tournament. And there's also a generation behind us that have no memories other than what they've seen and what they've heard. And so we thought that it would be a really cool idea to try to capture some of these amazing stories. You did say visual, right? It's a visual storytelling world that we live in. So we want to find photos and video and some audio too, right? If we can find some cool audio stuff of all the things that were going on around the tournament, at the games. It could be a picture of a ticket, right? The only game you went to. It could be the story. A friend of mine sent me a story about how he funded the games he went to by buying other tickets and reselling them so that he could then pay for the tickets that he wanted to go to for the games he wanted to. You see all these various stories that people have that sort of talk about this tournament and how it was a game changer for them. So we want to capture that. We've partnered up with Club 11, who, if you don't know, check them out. They're amazing online. They're also incredible photographers, videographers. They've got a bus that they're driving around. It's like a soccer bus. So a really fun group of very talented content creators, if you will, to capture this content, and then eventually we'll tell all the stories.
We most recently had a touch tone moment with World Cup '94. I volunteered for Oakland County FC, and we were able to get the mascot from 1994, Striker, one of the guys that was in the original mascots back in the Silver Dome in the Midwest games. He busted that out for the 4th of July game last year.
Nice.
So Striker still lives out there.
It's incredible.
Well, I'd like to bring him up because one of the things we're doing is that everybody who actually submits something that says we've got photos or video, whatever it is, goes into a drawing for this amazing denim jacket with a huge picture of Striker on the back.
Oh, that's great.
So it's from 1994, vintage thing, so it's very, very cool.
Yeah, look, I've told this story before. I was a military brat, and we were moving around a lot in that era. I think I would have been just about to turn 15 years old. So I would have been 14 in 94. And I don't recall interacting with the World Cup. I mean, it's a little bit of a source of shame, but at the same time, like, I was a baseball kid and my dad was moving us all over the place, and I was probably in the midst of a move, and I just I don't recall. Maybe I saw something, maybe I connected with it. So I think this is kind of for me, this project, because I'm a history guy. And I love the history of our game, as messy and as chaotic as it is, Greg. So I'm glad that there's potentially people, because I know people with stories, and I've seen some of the ephemera that people have collected and posted over the years. I did an interview a year and a half ago with Sebastian Salazar, where the whole conceit of my show was to have people bring a photo and we talk about what was going on in that photo. And he brought a picture of him and his mom at World Cup '94. That was the picture that he brought to share. And so that is so many people's origin story with this. I think it's incredible. I think it's a great idea. What do you have stuff already? Are you starting to see stuff come in? What
I've seen so far, we haven't dug in yet on what people have, but a lot of people are just like, I went to this game and I went to that game and I've got photos of that moment, right? People with, it's remarkable. I think there were, whatever it was, 90,000 people at the final. My guess is that we're going to get like 500,000 people that I was at the final and you know what I mean? So which is fine. Same with the Colombia game, against the U.S. national team against Colombia. So, a lot of it's just stories from friends who were like, I was at the final, or I was a college kid and I had no money and I somehow wrangled a ticket to, whatever it was, Saudi Arabia versus Belgium. And then and then that guy scored the goal. So I was at like one of the greatest games ever, right? So you're like, things like that. But what I would say, Jason, to your story in particular, first of all, I love this idea of an origin story, right? Because I think 94 is sort of an origin story in many ways. But I would also say you do have a story of 94 when it first entered your consciousness, and all of a sudden you're like, I need to know more about that. Robert gave us a 94 story. You gave us a story right from the start. You were like, hey, Strikers showed up, right? Oakland County, big deal what happened in Michigan around the World Cup, right? So, and if you want a story from the World Cup from 94, my mother was very involved in making sure grass would be able to grow in the Silver Dome for the World Cup. And she was like head of communications for the bid back in the early 90s. And they were like, do you think we could do this in the Silver Dome? And she said, well, my husband has a friend who owns a lawnscaping company. Let's call him. And they did. And he was like, it turned out he had a PhD from Michigan State. And he said, well, let me call this guy at Michigan State who's like the foremost grass person. And they did. And he went to work and they figured it all out and what type of grass and how long it'd be and the temperatures and all this kind of stuff. Next thing you know, they've got grass in the Silverdome for a World Cup game.
Funnily enough, I've spoken to that gentleman, Michigan State, and that professor.
Yeah, he's still involved, right? He's still there.
Yeah, they brought him out of like pseudo-retirement to engineer the stuff for these tournaments and for World Cup next year. And I did notice that he stopped returning my messages after the kind of the bad press of the recent grass turfs, unfortunately. But it is funny that connection, the through line from '94 till now is still happening. And I'll do a remember when my dad got us tickets to all the Silverdome games. We actually got to see the warm-up games that where they were testing the grass.
The year before,
Germany.
Germany played somebody, and Germany came off and said the grass was great.
Yes, I remember that being a big success, but we ended up moving to England the spring before the World Cup happened, so my dad had to give away the tickets, and I had to watch World Cup '94 from England.
Were you sitting with the British national or the English national team? Because
yeah, I didn't have a connection to the English team until Euro '96 was there, so actually it was bouncing between hosting nations there. But it's wild how the storylines, while it's like a generation separated, there's still echoes and plenty of evidence around.
Yeah,
I want to ask you, Greg, what is the grand plan with all of this? I mean, what is the end game?
So I think the end game is TBD, right? It's a work in progress in terms of this. But what the hope is that in the lead up to the World Cup, we will have all of these different types of media that we can then put together into various storytelling. Like one of the ones that I really like is the idea of, NPR, and they have StoryCorps, right? Where people just come in and they speak for about a minute or a minute and a half. I love the idea of 90 seconds because 90 seconds, 90 minutes, right? You do this whole thing where you tell a story in 90 seconds. And so I like this idea of maybe having voices over their pictures that they have if they don't have video, right? And they tell that story and then you kind of show it with the images that they have. And so we'll end up putting together a series of, USA '94 through the eyes of the fans that will go on to social media and various digital platforms sometime in the spring.
Before we let you go, I would like to ask, what would be like the holy grail of something that someone sent in? Like, what would be like the ultimate gift to be like, wow, this project is golden now?
Some of this is the holy grail would be something actually around the U.S. national team, right? And one of those things, like I did an interview or did a photo with Kobe Jones at an appearance a month before the World Cup, and I was the only person who showed up, right? Something like that, where people are like, they didn't know who this person was before, but then after the World Cup, they're going on Letterman and talking like that. Like this idea of the national team also sort of coming out to the world, the broad world, as opposed to, look, Italy '90 did a lot for the U.S. soccer fan base, but that was the hardcores who were watching those games. Once we got to '94, people knew who they were, right? They were, whether it was Alexi with the goatee, Kobe with his amazing hair, right? Ernie Stewart with his goal, Tony Miola with whatever that man bun was, right? So like all of that, I would love, that would be my holy grail, something around the national team and showing that sense of transformation. Right, that was not an evolutionary leap. That was a revolutionary leap, I think, that happened in those weeks for the U.S. national team and for those American players.
You've mentioned Short Corner Media and 11. Kind of where could people send in their memories and where could they check out the end product?
Yeah, they can go to shortcornermedia.com and they can find it there. I've got a blog where I put my World Cup story in there, actually, which was, being at an after party, like, VIP hospitality thing after the USA Brazil game and going into the bathroom and meeting James Hetfield, Lars Ulrich, and Robin Williams all in the same place. I just wanted a couple minutes with Lexi, and it was the only place I could find him just to say, hey, great tournament. And all of us are just standing in the bathroom, and Robin Williams' kid was there. So it's like this was a random group of people, right? It's very funny. So go to shortcornermedia.com and you can get all the information there.
Greg Lalas, thank you so much for joining us here on Morning Kickaround, building the excitement for next year's World Cup through looking in the rearview mirror. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're watching this now and if you haven't hit subscribe, do so now. And the more subscribers we have, the more opportunities we'll be able to bring on wonderful people like Greg to talk about amazing projects and stories in American soccer. So hit subscribe, and you got your finger up.
I do. You're not going to steamroll me this time? All right.
One finger stops this train.
It does now. It did not earlier. No, I figured something out. No, I just wanted to say that, I'm excited about the project that Greg brought to us today. I mean, that's just one thing sort of in the build up to the World Cup next year. Obviously, 94 being this incredible origin moment for American soccer is something I want to lean into. But there's also, and I think Morning Kickaround is part of this, there is a movement, there is a push. We just saw the announcement of Kickback Media last week. If you're a very online person, you probably heard about that. It involves SoccerWise and some other things that they're doing. I think you're going to start to see some of that stuff pop up and more people make an effort to bring more to American soccer with the World Cup coming next year. And I'm very excited for that. I'm hoping we can be part of that. I'm hoping we can ride a wave and be part of that story. And it's why we asked you to support us here on Morning Kickaround in all the ways that Robert's about to tell you.
Yeah, after you hit subscribe, you can kick it up a notch by becoming a member of the channel. You become an MK Ultra, and at $3.99 a month gets you early access to videos, bonus content, access to the Discord server, which I think is one of the most fun additions since this has been added to the channel. There's threads from Pro Rel. There's talk about local soccer, MLS, the national teams, and general topics, and the fun introductions where it's kind of people having their soccer origin stories or soccerholic type of introductions. Really enjoyed that on the Morning Kickaround Discord server that you can join by becoming an MK Ultra 8 channel member. You can follow along on social media at mkickaround on X, Instagram, Blue Sky. Write us a note at morningkickaround@gmail.com. And you can also find us as a podcast, Morning Kickaround, on your favorite audio platform. And I did miss one way to help us fundraise for specific projects. The one we have up there now is a $3,000 goal for a meetup on location, Morning Kickaround. Link up, so ko-fi.com/morningkickaround. Thank you everyone who's donated there and continues to do so. We have some messages to return on there. There is a messaging function in there that we need to attend to, but thank you for MK Ultras to do it.
I gotta go to the post office and send some stuff. If you become an MK Ultra, you can join the Swap Meet channel and ask me for something I have in my studio. And I do have a working inventory list that is available on Google Docs. So you can see my list of stuff. If you want a picture, ask me for a picture. I'll do that too. It's very simple. But I will send you something that is in this room. All right. Unless it is a very personal item that maybe has some real meaning to me.
Yeah, give me your watch. Give me your watch.
No, that's got my fitness information, Rob. That's terrible. No, I will send you whatever soccer thing you want from this studio. And obviously you are only seeing a small sliver of what's in this little room with me right here. If you want something and you are an MK Ultra, I will send it to you. So join up.
I would definitely like the cheesiest headshot you got with a signature, so I can put it right here next to my desk.
I don't have any printed. What am I, an actor? I don't have printed headshots. What do you think this is?
You got to put some glitter in the envelope too. It'll be fun. All right. We'll move right along. We are going to look at what about today's big question? Where are these USL 1 stadiums at? There's a couple questions in the mix, so let's move right along with today's big question here on Monday's Morning Kickaround. All right, it is the big question here on Morning Kickaround. There is a lot of projects, clubs, all sorts of news across the country. But what is the progress on some of these USL 1 stadiums? MK Ultras have been really asking the question, and there is some developments. What do you got for us, Jason?
Well, okay, you said USL League 1. I want to be accurate here. The reason for this conversation today is not about USL League One. It's actually about the championship, because Milwaukee is a town we've talked about having a plan to bring a USL championship team to Wisconsin. And I think we even discussed the final 10 names that they had put up on their website as potential names. This might go a ways back for some people, but you recall this conversation?
Yeah, I do recall there was the iron workers, there was a variety of names, all varying degrees of good and bad. I remember that.
There was some weird ones in there that we were like, which one's the best one? I'm going to give you the final 10. You ready? Because we did a video on this, but we'll just recap a little since we're going to talk Milwaukee. Milwaukee Tall Boys.
Yes.
Goodland or Goodland. I don't know how they say it in Wisconsin. Lake Effect. Milwaukee Iron. That's the one you were remembering. 1846 Milwaukee. Imagine that's the date of founding for the city of Milwaukee.
Probably. Milwaukee
Barons, Milwaukee Brigade, Fresh Coast, which sounds like a line of clothing I'm too old to wear.
Yeah, Fresh Coast is like the new inland rollerblade company or something.
Cream City, which I think we liked, but wondered. I mean, I understand where there's a history.
I do remember there was context to all of these. They weren't quite as random as they seem on the face.
And Milwaukee Industrial, which I like, but I think is a tough sell marketing wise. Okay, those are the top 10, or those are the 10 finalists for the Name the Team competition for Milwaukee Pro Soccer, which you can still find on MilwaukeeProSoccer.com. But I have bad news. And this was passed along to me by somebody on Blue Sky. This is from Jordan, actually. And this is over at MilwaukeeMag.com. Headline: Has the Iron District soccer development stalled out? 11 months after the developer privately floated the idea of a rare tax exemption, no work has begun on the downtown stadium and surrounding entertainment district. And I think this is a very good example of soccer ideas, professional soccer teams being planned, getting out over their skis before all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed on stadium plans and those kind of things, making big statements, putting out a Name the Team contest, and then that's my break
record
noise.
Scratch, yeah,
or the record scratch, either one of those two. And nothing's happening. Like this is a very in-depth, long piece by Rich Ravito at Milwaukee Mag, and it outlines how there's nothing happening there. And there's even a new idea for the site where Milwaukee was supposed to be building their soccer team. And again, so much of this is tied up in this whole mixed use entertainment district, things that you have to do this and this to get the tax break to make the stadium is the anchor of the development, but you also want to build apartment buildings and you want to have a concert venue and all this stuff. And this is just the way the world works right now.
When you see the press releases for stadiums, mixed use is definitely a red flag for problems.
I mean, I don't know that it's always a bad thing, mixed use, but in terms of like, why is the soccer stadium part of the plan to appeal to a civic element, a civic pride element that's going to help the mixed use development plan get through? Because that's what the developer wants. What the developer really wants to make money on isn't the soccer stadium. Soccer stadiums are not good investments that way. Not really. And obviously some of this is again, it's like, like the state or the county or the region has a stadium tax exemption, or there's something in the code that says you can get money towards building a stadium if you meet certain requirements. It's just a way to access money. It's not always about, is this a great place to build a soccer stadium because we think Milwaukee is a great place for pro soccer. Maybe it will be. Like, those things can be true at the same time. But man, this is very frustrating to read that basically nothing has happened. And if you look at the history of the Milwaukee plan, Rob, it was 2022. They were planning for 26, but then they had to delay and they made an announcement about that in 2023. And now it's almost impossible to imagine this getting done in time for 2000. It can't happen for 26.
No.
But they have not made any other update. And all of the people that Rich Ravito, the writer, has called have not given him any comment about where things stand, including USL.
It's really unfortunate that has not progressed at all. When you see 3 years since you got people excited, and then just for crickets to incur, that's unfortunate. Looking down the row, what other teams would you say we have an update from on this one, Jason?
So again, USL Championship. It is New Mexico United. Look what I'm wearing right now. Look at that. I'm wearing a New Mexico United shirt. Shout out to our friend Ron Patel, who was on the show a couple weeks back and talking about New Mexico United. This is a good one, actually. This is Albuquerque's Business Journal reporting that Peter Trevisani, the owner of New Mexico United, thinks that they are getting to that place of making actual progress on their stadium, Rob. And, again, you'd never count your chickens before they're hatched in these cases. But there's reason. He says he expects more legal wrangling, but there was a ruling in the courts there in Albuquerque that went their way, clearing the way for construction of a privately funded stadium at Albuquerque's Balloon Fiesta Park. The district court rejected the latest appeal by 3 local neighborhood associations seeking to prevent stadium construction on the city-owned site. I mean, again, I don't know how to talk about these local issues, because while I, as a soccer fan from afar, wearing a New Mexico United shirt that Ron Patel sent me, and being a friend of Ron Patel and interested in the growth of soccer, this all sounds great to me. Let's build a stadium. But I'm sure there are people on the ground in Albuquerque where that balloon culture is very important to them, that are like, no, this is a terrible use of the land for Albuquerque. We don't like soccer. We don't care. And who am I to tell them that they're wrong? But it does look like they're moving forward. He says if the city's able to finish its work and get the site ready by next summer, 2027 is not out of the question. So they're looking at 27 for Albuquerque right now at the very earliest. They want to get 7,500 seats together and then build from there.
Yeah, another team, we've referenced them a few times now. Fort Wayne, another team, got shovels in the ground last week. There was a big public unveiling of Fort Wayne, their USL 2 team, and now going to USL 1. So, we're talking about, Milwaukee stalling, some legal wrangling still in the works, but things positive in Albuquerque. But Fort Wayne, all systems go out there by the looks of it.
I mean, I would love, just as a guy who likes good vibes, I'm a good vibes guy, Rob. I would love for people to all be on board, like for the city to be like, this is a great idea. For the people of the city to be like, this is a great idea. For the soccer team, obviously it's a great idea. For the fans, like that, we would prefer that all of these be completely smooth sailing. Again, that's impossible. I mean, as Mike Thomas, who is an MK Ultra, says, any site in the country will have people against the stadium. 100%. Absolutely. That is very true. I mean, anytime any locality tries to make progress towards something that they see as either, in this case, bringing some civic pride and giving fans an opportunity to go out and see their soccer team, or just to build more housing. Like, hey, we don't have enough housing in our county. Can we build more housing? Let's have a plan. Oh, this is the plan. We're to build more housing. Very rich people go, no, we don't want more housing. We don't want more people in our county. And now we're back to square one again. And I don't know. It's just, that stuff is frustrating. That is that. And again, if I'm just falling on the side of being a soccer fan, I'm glad that there's progress in Albuquerque. I'm frustrated about Milwaukee, happy about Fort Wayne. And that's only 3 out of 12, 15, 12, 20 projects across the country.
Yeah, I wonder how much the USL's upper brass is knocking on the door of Milwaukee, because you'd think that a city of that size and seemingly that amount of attention and butts in seats, if they're able to get a club running, you think that they'd want them in the mix here for this whole next stage of development of a D1 league in the works, the pro rel. You think you want Milwaukee in that mix if it's even on the table?
But what can USL do, right? USL,
like, hey, what's going on here, guys?
Well, I mean, I'm sure they're asking questions. But, if a writer reaches out and they don't have a response, or they don't respond, clearly they don't have any answers. Because if they had an answer, I mean, they're not going to say it's bad unless it's dead, right? And unless it's completely dead, they're not going to give a negative response. So you're asking them, hey, do you have a comment on what's going on in Milwaukee? And if they don't respond, they're still hoping. They're still trying to see if there's going to be momentum. Maybe the people in Milwaukee, and I do believe that one of the principals involved in the Milwaukee club is the guy who helped start Forward Madison, right? So this is somebody with some history. I think there was actually a minor league baseball team owning group up in Wisconsin that pulled all of this off. I think I met these guys in Richmond years ago when they went around. What's that beer that you can only get in Wisconsin, Rob? Do you know that beer?
It's escaping me, but is it like
Spotted Cow, something like that?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, I was gonna say the White Horse, but Spotted Cow is correct.
I think it's Spotted Cow. They brought some Spotted Cow with them around the country when they were touring with Ford Madison a couple years back, and I actually went out and met them, and I guess drank some Spotted Cow. Maybe I drank too much. I don't remember. But these guys are, they're business people, but they're also very much in that we can create something local and interesting and connected to all of this. I hope it works out. I hope it works out to the benefit of the city, to the benefit of soccer fans, and we get a team in more. That you're right. That's a place that should have a pro team, and they should be part of this next wave.
Yeah, you think it's big enough city, when you talk about NBA sort of terms, it's on the smaller side. But when we're talking about the Albuquerques, the El Pasos, and the Boise's of the world, Milwaukee, that's got some gravity to it, and some and a touch of gravitas, and could be like a Midwest sort of focal point for it. And hopefully that does progress, and that they would be an asset there. Talk about side notes as far as stadium development. Detroit City FC still trying to wrangle with the 1.5 million gallons of water in the abandoned hospital to get out.
Oh, really?
And they found a dead body in there.
No, no, Rob, no.
Yeah, they found a dead body. Yeah.
No, I'm going to have to look up. Is this on the news, or did you know somebody who knows somebody?
No, that is courtesy of the Morning Kickaround Discord server.
Wow.
We were talking about this very subject, and producer Jenny actually threw in the chat it wasn't like a relic, a skeleton, a dinosaur or anything. It was a new one. But
wait, hold on. What do you mean by new? This is now this is a show I need to see. What is going on? Wow.
Yeah, check your local crime, true crime podcast. But
Detroit, they have to change their name. They have to be the Detroit Zombies now. Did Detroit City FC have cameras chronicling their plan to build this stadium? Because if they don't, we missed an opportunity here. This is better than Welcome to Wrexham. This is way better. Detroit City. Oh my God.
Well, we can have a whole docuseries, because I remember one of my last episodes of Michigan Soccer Central podcast, I talked to Indy 11 president, I believe, and they were knocking down an old stadium in the hopes of building their stadium. This is about a year ago now. A lot of stories have changed since then. And I just joked, oh, that's an old building you knocked down. Like, you haven't come across any skeletons or anything. And he's like, oh, no. And literally in the news the next week in Indianapolis, they found like relics of some of our ancestors there in Indianapolis. So we could do like maybe a little spin-off, the ghost stories of soccer stadiums or something.
Soccer zombies. We could do a video on soccer zombie stories. Wow. This is way more prosaic and not at all as interesting as dead bodies being found in various soccer related places. But I did see that our listeners, the MK Ultra, somebody was updating us, maybe a commenter, when we talked about some of the USL League One projects. One of them we mentioned was Eugene out there in Oregon. And I believe somebody, clarified for us that the League One Eugene project is connected to an already existing USL League Two team out there. I believe that's the case. So we could add that to the list of clubs that have that connection. It may not be a direct trying to, grow into professional soccer from USL League Two, but I believe there is a connection. I just wanted to mention that.
Speaking of commenter feedback, apparently we say Boise wrong. It's Boise, not with it's an S-E-E, not a Z-E at the end there, which
is that right? Okay.
At least someone chimed in. It was news to me, but someone was saying that we were saying Boise wrong.
I'll check with my sister. If it's Boise, my apologies. We'll have to make it work. Sometimes you just don't say things right because you're not from that place. Like I don't know. There's lots of stuff in your area, Rob, that is impossible for me to figure out why you say it the way you say it. Detroit is a wild place for that.
Yeah, it's a choose your own adventure with French influence on English, really. And then throw a little bit of Native American, maybe a little Polish, and you got the whole kit and caboodle for us.
Yeah, it's a wild adventure. Why is that pronounced that way? I don't know. It just is. All right, we can wrap us up.
All right, guys, thank you so much. We started this whole conversation with subscribe, then become an MK Ultra with a small donation. You can help us fund specific projects like meeting up in person on ko-fi.com/morningkickaround. Thank you, everyone, contributing both to the channel and to the Ko-Fi. You can follow along on social media, X, Instagram, and Blue Sky. The tag is @mkickaround. And notes, we like getting emails other than people talking about marketing scams and such. I like hearing from them, K Ultras, via email, morningkickaround@gmail.com. More exciting stuff to come. It's a packed week. We got a bunch of great guests. Greg was great today. We'll get some more good stuff along the way. We'll be back Wednesday morning. Until then, everybody, please enjoy your soccer.